Alright guys, this is going to be a little bit of a longer video since I ain't done one of these in a while, but we got a lot of cover here as far as updates with my vehicles go. So we're going to start with the Oldsmobile here because it's the only one in the driveway. The other ones are down by the shop, so we'll go down there in a second. But as far as what I've done to this so far in the last few months, since I made a video on it, I converted the choke to electric because I was sick of dealing with snapped off heat riser tubes. I installed a torque converter lockup switch and then found out that my solenoid's busted, so I got to take a tranny pan off and replace the solenoid with a new one. And the new ones don't just plug and play, you got to wire them up, and I don't really want to deal with it. So at this point I have a lockup switch wired. It has power going to the switch, but the switch doesn't, or that has power going to the solenoid, but the solenoid don't work. So eventually when I get sick of getting, 17 miles a gallon, I will get a new solenoid. But as of right now, it's not a real big concern. There's bird shit all over my car. That's lovely. It's been pretty reliable. I've been driving it to work every day, most days. I had to replace that tire is from my Lincoln because the one that was on there exploded, and it was too far gone to try and put a tube in and just send it. I didn't want to be driving on something that unsafe, so it's got one Uniroyal Tiger Paw and the rest of them are from Firestone. I also got a new spare tire for it because I didn't have one before, so I got a spare rim and tire. And it just so happens that it's a trailer rim because it's all the discount tire had, and it was urgent because this car was up on a jack stand. So there's that. Let's see, what else did I do to this? Not much else, I don't think, that I did to this car. Nothing's broken, nothing has been fixed that wasn't before, although I did figure out, I'll show you something here. I did figure out how to get my AC to work without the heat working, and I don't know if I ever actually made a video on it because I didn't know how to do it. But for some reason in this car, you would turn, the vent on or the AC on, or whatever, and cold air would come out the vents, but hot air would come out the floor. And there was no way you could turn the hot air out the floor off. But when you went to heater, cold air came out the floor and nothing came out the vents. And then if you went to just vent and turned it all the way to hot, cold air would still come out the vents and hot air would come out the floor. So it was all goofy, and I took the controller out and I did a bunch of testing, and I ended up having to make a new harness for it for the wintertime that basically blocked off any possibility of getting cold air into the vents, and unplugged my AC compressor harness under the hood. And that way I was able to get hot heat on all these three modes: defrost, vent, and heater in the wintertime, but no AC. Well, now that it's getting warm again, I gotta have AC, but I don't want to bypass my heater cord just yet because it's still cold in the mornings. I still want my heat. So I've just been dealing with cracking a window, putting the AC on, and then just dealing with the hot airflow coming through the floor vents. But I figured out that if you put the AC over to max, which I hardly ever go to because all I see when I see max is maximum fuel wastage. But anyway, you turn it to max, cold air comes out the defrost vent, the dash vent, and the floor vent. So there's no hot air going anywhere. So that's nice. So if you had that weird problem on your B body or C body, there you go. That's how you fix that. I think I'm still going to bypass the heater cord in the summertime, though, because I really don't want to be on max all the time. But anyway, that's enough talking about the Oldsmobile. As I said before, nothing else is really broken on it, so there's nothing else to really cover. I do plan on installing a cruise control system on it still. I've still in the inner workings of that, but I've had a couple of other things going on that take priority over that, so nothing's been done with it yet. But anyway, let's go to the other cars. Alright, let's talk about the little blue car here. So this car, last I made a video on, if I even uploaded that, I can't remember anymore these days, but I made so many videos on just bullshit things. It was having a flooding problem. You'd start it up, and within a few seconds the carb would boil over, or would flood over through the vent tube, and fuel would just bleed out and spray everywhere, and it wouldn't run because it would flood up through the intake manifold. All 6 cylinders would flood. Gas would go through the intake manifold, up through the barrel of the carb, and up out the top. It was just terrible. So I took it apart to see what the hell happened. Turns out my float sunk, and my needle, there was no gasket on the seat for the needle and seat. So gas was not only just pouring in at max volume because of the float, but it was also getting past the seat. So the float, you know, it wouldn't matter if the needle was in there or not because the gas just kept on leaking. So replaced that gasket, replaced the float, got the carb on, put a vacuum gauge on it and actually tuned it right. And now this thing starts up like a brand new car. One pump to the gas, 2 cranks, and it's running. And it's the most reliable car I have at this point. Which is sad because it's also the oldest and it's the shittiest. But nonetheless, starts up, runs, drives, doesn't stall, bog, hesitate, do any of that shit. It shifts perfect, it runs perfect, it needs a muffler, but other than that, everything works on it. What little it has works on it, so I've been pretty happy with that. I painted the hood. I got sick of the peeling clear coat, so I just put primer on it, and then I accidentally spilled some paint thinner, so now that's faded on my fender and a little bit of this wiper cowl here. But other than that, that's all what's going on with that car. Nothing's really changed. I plan on getting real steel wheels for this instead of them crappy aluminum ones, because I found out that that's the same bolt pattern as a early 60s Mustang, and somebody with a 60s Mustang might want racing wheels like that, so I might be able to get some money for it. So that's what's going on with that. Now this thing is done a little, or well, not really, but sort of. The hood's back on, the engine's in, it runs. I got the cam brake in done, and it runs decently okay. I've taken it for one test drive to get the piston rings seated, or at least started to get the piston rings seated, and it got hot. It didn't overheat, but it did get hot. And then the oil light came on because it was such low RPMs from a combination of running lean and being too hot, and it just didn't want to stay running, so it's just been sitting ever since. But it does run. It starts up. It's got a couple of vacuum leaks because my EGR plate's broken, and I ordered a new one, and that's where I'm at with this. But I'll start it up for you in a second. It's once I get the engine finally dialed in and tuned up right and everything, it'll be back on the road, and then the next thing I'm going to fix on it is the factory cruise control. But in order for cruise to work, you have to have vacuum, and this engine doesn't have any because that EGR plate is leaking like 15 pounds of vacuum, or 15 inches of vacuum, like all the time. So it doesn't really run too hot or too good. It does run very hot. But yeah, engine's in it. Cam braking went okay. It got a little hot during the cam braking, so we had to sort of 10-10-10 it instead of just 30 minutes of constant running at 25 to 3 grand. So, you know, is what it is. I'll start up for it in a second, but I want to cover the bad news of today. And that is the Lincoln. This car is done. It blew up last weekend. I was on my way back visiting a friend in the cities, and it's you know, it's a 2-hour drive from here, and on my way back, I was about halfway back, and I was making a stop at McDonald's, and all of a sudden the transmission wouldn't shift, and the engine got really hot and overheated. So pulled it in the parking lot, opened the hood, all the oil was gone, all the coolant was full of oil, and there was no transmission fluid in it. So somehow all my transmission fluid leaked out. I would assume from the front oil pump seal, because this 4R70W transmission that's in this, they're prone to front oil seal leaks. All the fluid's gone out of it. Roasted the torque converter, you know, fried the tranny, and my guess is the head gasket that was already going bad just went the rest of the way out because the extra load that the transmission was putting on the engine just put it over the edge heat-wise. So this car is not drivable anymore. It barely runs. I don't have the keys on me, so I can't start this and show you. But I've completely cleaned it out. I've gotten all my stuff out of it. Got my seat covers out. Got everything on the glove box, center console, all that. There's a spare tire I was telling you about because the other one's on the Oldsmobile. And not only did all that happen, the radio quit working. So it's done. It's not gonna be driving for anytime soon for a while, at least a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, who the hell knows. I'm not gonna get rid of it though, because it's kind of funny how you get attached to cars after you have them for so long. I've had this car for 3 years, 3.5 years almost. And I've kind of grown attached to it, even though I didn't really like it all that much at first. I didn't like how new it was and how the new features were, and I didn't like kind of the way that the headrest and armrest are on the seats. There was a lot of things I didn't really care for, but I've really grown to enjoy this car, and it's kind of sad that it's time for it to be put to the grave. But I'm gonna find a storage unit for it and put it in the unit, and maybe someday when I get bored and I got some extra cash on hand, I'll just throw a tranny in it and replace that head gasket, and maybe, just maybe, it might drive down the road again, but I wouldn't count on it. It's pretty fried. I need to replace a lot of stuff on it before I wanted to actually deal with driving it again. But anyway, there's that. Let me start this Mercury for you. Get my keys here. I'm not sure how it's gonna start, but we'll see. Shouldn't be too bad. So we'll give it 3 pumps. It might need more, and it might need me to crack it a little bit, but see, it doesn't really like to idle. I'm feathering the gas right now to keep it running. Yeah, that's what happens when I let off the gas. It doesn't like it very much. See that? This is about quarter throttle. I'm guessing I'm at about $1,000 right now. And it sounds good, but if I let off the gas here, it doesn't like it very much. And that's because of that vacuum leak. So I'll have to replace that EGR plate before I can drive it down the road again. But that's what it sounds like. It does run, it does start. I took the valve covers off to make sure the cam didn't go flat during the break-in, and it did not. All the rockers are moving like they should. It has compression. It's not losing coolant, it's not losing oil. It is good to go, all but that vacuum leak. So when I get that, I'll put it in. Maybe I'll put another update video out just for this car. And then also, as far as the Lincoln goes, since this was my car that I would use when it was really cold in the wintertime, and when I would go out of town, you know, any trip that's going to be longer than an hour straight of driving, I'd take this, so I won't have to worry about getting, you know, overheated or any other kind of vapor locked or anything like that you'd experience with an older car like all my other cars. So needs to be replaced, and what better thing to replace it with than its own competitor? So you'll see a video about that. I bought a car. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can guess what it is, because what else is going to compete with a 95 Lincoln Town car? But there will be a video on it. It needs some work. I don't have it here. It's at my it's at the place that I work at right now, because I'm gonna be working on it with some coworkers this week, see if I can get it a little more roadworthy. But once it is, there'll be a video, so be looking out for that. Anyway, I've been talking your ear off long enough. I hope you enjoyed this, if you watched the whole thing, and stay tuned for the next one. See ya.